would like
Yeah,
to
you,
do,
and then you, and then you finish, and then I'll take over, and then you can take over.
This
Finish
is
eating.
important that we hear from everybody.
Is it
and
on?
give everybody a
Oh,
free
yeah.
shot. So, ladies and gentlemen, if we can give the candidates the respect of our silence, or if we're going to have a conversation, we can take it somewhere else so that they're taking out time from their campaigns to talk to us. And I'm just going to, go down the line. They'll have 2 minutes to introduce themselves, and what I'd love, again, I'm sure you have the elevator speech, but why you're running for governor. And then we'll start with a little bit of fast question round that will, I think, be able to highlight different people and different positions. So if I can start with Heidi.
Heidi. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much. Good afternoon and aloha. Aloha. Happy Cinco de Mayo. So much fun things. I had to bust out a bright pink jacket for the event. Yeah. So yes, have so much fun. Thank you to the Oahu League of Republican Women for hosting this amazing event. Yes. This is at this beautiful venue. I've actually always wanted to come here. It's my first time. So beautiful. So thank you so much. So my name is Heidi Tsuneyoshi, and I'm very excited to declare my candidacy for governor. Currently, I serve as a council member on the Honolulu City Council, and I've been there for 3 years. Before that, I served as a staff for the previous council member for 8 years. And so my whole life has been all about really looking to how I can serve people and how the best next step for me in that service is. So when I decided to make the jump to governor, a lot of people were very surprised, as the run for re-election would have been a much simpler path and was pretty straightforward in the fact that we have done a really good job in our district. I represent District 2, which goes from Mililani Mauka, we come through Wahua, and we go all the way to Kahalu. So I represent 40% of Oahu geographically. So the path to the re-election would have been much easier, but after a lot of thought and consideration and seeing what has happened in our state after the past couple of years, I was compelled to take that next step and to make sure that I was a part of making change from the top down. Because after what I've seen from the inside out, working as council member for the past 3 years, and seeing how decisions are made, and when people come and say, this is what is the issue for us, and sitting there and recognizing that the people's voices weren't, it's almost done. Sorry. So I really felt compelled to serve. My background is in social service. I've worked in homeless and transitional shelters. I've worked as a counselor with at-risk youth and started the first ever parenting program in a women's prison. My mom's a local girl. My dad's from Georgia, grew up in the military, so a very diverse personal background as well. I have 2 children, 24 and 22. So between my professional and personal background, I feel like this is the time for me, with everybody's help, to rise up and make a change in our home, for our people, and for our land. So thank you again so much for having me. Excited to share with you a little bit more about my platform and candidacy, and thank you so much. Thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is BJ Penn, and I never thought I'd be running for governor. Standing here at Outrigger telling everybody to vote for me for the governor. I was born on Oahu. I grew up in Hilo. I moved to Hilo when I was 3. I went to Hilo High School, and then I got into martial arts, and I was a professional athlete for 20 years. And I retired from sports. I was watching my kids, and then the pandemic came, and they started closing all of our businesses. My gyms got closed. They stopped school for our kids, and I'm just kind of watching everything go by. And then they were pushing a bill to do a vaccine passport to leave the island, and that ended up. That's why I'm here today, because of that bill, because it was just too much. I'm here to. I'm so sick of corruption, and that's exactly why I got in. When all this was happening, I was like, you know what? Hawaii needs help. I'm going to use my name value. I'm going to try to go out there, and I'm going to try to help everybody. I'm not a career politician. I just want to help everybody and put everything back to normal. So I decided to volunteer and come out, and it's the least I could do with all the support that Hawaii has given me my whole life, with all the success that you guys have given me. I haven't always won my fights. I get beat up sometimes, and I come home and everybody in Hawaii is like, pick up your head, BJ, go fight again, you can do it, go fight again. So I just want to let everybody know I'm here to stop corruption, and I can't be bullied, I can't be bought. I've been dealing with bullies and cowards my whole life, and that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Aloha. My name is Paul Morgan. I was born and raised in 1975 in Mississippi. In 2013, I made my way to Hawaii after a childhood dream from a mother who believed with me that whatever I set my mind to, as long as I was willing to work hard for it, I could achieve it. So I took her at her word, and it proved to be true. It also afforded me an opportunity to attend Vanderbilt University on a full athletic scholarship, and while there, I majored in human and organizational development. I've always wanted to work in an atmosphere where I can help them. And coming from Mississippi, everybody knows that we're usually 49 to 50 in most lanes. So being a competitor, I wanted to make better for myself and for the place that I love. So fortunately, I live in Hawaii, and I'm bringing the same passion and energy into being the governor of Hawaii because I truly care about what's going on. And as I'm walking the streets, riding the bus, talking to people who used to be in different positions, and just meeting people where they're at, whether it's at a basketball camp that I was at last night, or riding the bus to Kailua the other day. Just talking to people and hearing their stories of we're on point with our plan, Hawaii First, which is centered around economic recovery, creating industry around the issues of Hawaii, and ending corruption. And people are sharing with us what their definition of corruption is, because we're listening to the people. And this is what this is about. So they're saying that bribery, extortion, rape, and murder are all parts of corruption. And the rape part is the story that the lady shared about her daughter being in the school and speaking up about the teacher that sexually assaulted her. And when that student had enough, I'll call it courage, to step forward and to report on this teacher, and the reason they didn't go in and pass what they were doing is because the two families knew each other. I have a 16-year-old daughter. And I know what I would have done within the limits of the law, because I've done it before for my sister who was a victim and a survivor of domestic violence. So I'm running for all the right reasons, and those right reasons start around Hawaii First, economic recovery, ending corruption, and creating industry around the issues of Hawaii. My name is Paul Morgan. You can find out more about us at paulmorganforgovernor.com. Mahalo.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha. Thank you. This is McGarry Cordery, and isn't this like a staycation right here? Isn't this something? I'm just glad to be here today, and I'm super grateful that you joined us today. I would like to introduce my wife. She's at the table back there, my bride, Kim Cordery. We've been married 41 years. We have 2 adult daughters, 7 grandkids, and this is the reason why I'm running. I thought on my way down here as I pulled off Kapahulu Avenue and I seen the lines grow with homeless people everywhere. People here in Hawaii, I don't know about you, but for me, I'm choking on bad government. I'm tired of the consequences of bad policy. We here in Hawaii should not live this way. We should live in abundance. But our government, this government, your legislative branch, and the executive branch in Hawaii is not serving the people of Hawaii. On the very contrary. Coming down the Pali, I looked at where my kids used to live. Bottom of the Pali, they had a rental place right on the right. My kids no longer live in here anymore. 4 years ago they left. Who knows what I'm talking about? How many of your kids and your friends are having the conversation that we have to leave Hawaii? That living here is unsustainable. It is too difficult. Families should not have to live wondering whether or not they're going to make their mortgage payment. Lifestyle in Hawaii is being crushed by government, and government consuming the wealth of the people. So our candidacy and our governance piece in Hawaii will be access for the people to their government. Accountability, transparency, and ending corruption. Like Paul said, corruption is undermining everything we hope for. Who heard the news last night? No bail in Hawaii? Are you kidding me? And we're going to wonder, we have crime, murders in the street. This kind of behavior is because of bad policy. Governors make choices. The choices they make determine the direction of our state. I'm telling you, I'm here for liberty, for honor, integrity, and for the people to get their voice back. You're not a vote. You're a person. Come out. Join my run for governor. Enroll your friends. Make sure everybody you know is registered to vote, and vote. Thank you very much.
the way we're gonna do this, so it's fair. I wanted to we did pass along a whole bunch of questions to the candidates. We obviously are not gonna get to all of them. But what we are gonna do is start with one and then let everybody answer it. Then we'll start with the next one and let everybody answer it. So you can get kind of a feel for where people stand. I think first of all, can we get another round of applause? I think we have incredible candidates, and this is the year to do it. So if I could start with Heidi, and then what we'd like to do, I'll just be the whipcracker for the time. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Charlene, real quickly, we heard from Heidi what she's been doing the last 3 years city council. I did not understand from Paul and Gary what their business expertise has been.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll let them answer that, Violet, or you can ask the question and answer. So, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna give you like I said, this is a bit of a speed round. You have up to 2 minutes to answer these questions. We'll just go down the line. We'll start with BJ. The next one we'll start so that it'll the round robin of the microphone will kind of indicate to you. Oh, yeah, so that's, yes, when I asked that, not yet, okay, yeah. So if you wanna, so the first question is, so I'm a business owner, and many of us here are business owners, and Hawaii receives very low ratings as a business-friendly state. If anything, what would you do as governor to change state policies or regulations to help small businesses grow in Hawaii?
Thank you so much. So definitely after the 2 years that we've had with COVID and how small businesses were treated very unfairly as opposed to big box entities, first and foremost to never make sure that small businesses never have to go through the regulations that they had to go through these last couple of years, that they should have never had to be at 50% capacity when Target and everybody was overflowing. So there's a number of issues that hurt our small businesses here in our state. One is definitely our taxing structure. So for personal income tax and for corporate income taxes purposes in Hawaii, it's some of the worst ever. So it's almost like if you have a business, you're paying so much into your taxes that it's hard to even make a profit because of how much is taxed from what you're trying to make. Yep. So first and foremost is tax reform, definitely, to be more supportive of our small businesses. Also looking to how we deal with how small businesses are able to operate with minimum wage and other things that are being imposed on our small businesses. We really need to find out from our small business what is a workable solution for small businesses to keep their doors open, to have employees, and to be able to be supported in all that they have to do, because it is a lot to have a small business here. Other things include when small businesses need to go for construction permits and other type of permits. A lot of things are held up just from businesses not being able to get the permits that they need to be able to operate. I talked to a small business owner just the other day, and they were waiting like 5 to 6 months for a sign permit. So it's very difficult just to get your business off the ground if you can't get a sign to show where your business is. So there's a lot of red tape, a lot of things that we have to change to make it viable for small businesses to operate. And I look forward as governor to take that step by step and break down all those components of what makes it so difficult. Thank you.
Yes.
Small businesses have been under attack under this administration. We have seen the greatest transfer of wealth in the history of mankind. The mega stores have thrived while the small mom and pop shops were forced to close down from ineffective lockdowns. I will protect small businesses by giving them a fair shot. If Amazon can stay open, so can Leonard's Bakery, Teddy's Bigger Burger, and Teddy's Bigger Burger. It will all be about what is fair. I also want to stimulate businesses by supporting the infrastructure for businesses to operate. We need manufacturing jobs. We will help support the infrastructure to support manufacturing. I want to build our financial sector in Hawaii by creating a Hawaii Investment Group. It will be a state-funded investment bank. It will be funded by a percent of the Aloha Fund revenue. The Aloha Fund revenue is a toll paid by non-resident visitors to Hawaii. The Aloha Fund is how we fund our programs. It will all come from out-of-state monies. We can fund my programs without touching our current budget. I am creating an automatic surplus to help solve some of our most pressing issues. Thank you.
So this is a part of our platform as far as how we created Hawaii First Economic Recovery. In the first page, Hawaii Economic Recovery, is based on the first 100 days of being in office. And it starts with had the mask mandates not been reversed, that was the first thing we'd do. Reverse the mandates, rehire those people that lost their jobs because they were forced vaccinated, and then open small businesses. So before opening small businesses is about opening government to be transparent. And that means my schedule, no matter where I am across the country or the world, promoting Hawaii, is available so anyone can meet and greet us wherever we are. And then from there, recovering $25 to every person who's not a resident or can prove residency of Hawaii in order to support what we call a revolving loan from low interest loans, and then matching grants to help support Hawaii-made, Hawaii-grown businesses. We're doing this as we go out into the community and promote our Hawaii-made, Hawaii-grown events. And it's just sharing up the best practices in my background as a business development consultant. At one time I was a DoD, Department of Defense contractor, and my job was to have small minority, veteran, woman-owned businesses to sell to the state, local, and federal government. So we're sharing up those best practices so that Hawaii's businesses benefit from it. We export the businesses to the mainland and wherever else across the world that land is cheaper, and the path to least resistance are those people who are forced to leave Hawaii because of the cost of living. So at that point, we bypass franchise law, and it also allows us to come back to Hawaii to support local issues from affordable housing to homelessness, where we encourage everyone in Hawaii to have their own family's foundation, which is off the top of 50% tax break to donating to the charity. So just being able to educate from the governor's office these best practices, this is what I mean when I say Hawaii first, economic recovery, creating industry around the issues, and ending corruption.
Thank you. The comment about Hawaii being an unfriendly business state is very true. We have one of the worst business climates in the country. It makes it very hard for small business to make a profit. And to answer Miley's question, I've been a general contractor in Hawaii for 35 years, and I understand business. I understand what it takes to actually build a foundation, to work with people, to generate contracts, to understand commitment, to understand budget, to understand what the resources need to be, what's required, and how to move forward. The things that are crushing business are fees, regulations, and taxes. We have the highest tax state in the nation. The regulations that we suffer with business are found in things like unemployment insurance, workman's compensation insurance, liability insurance. These are the kinds of things that people don't understand about business. The general conditions are the overhead to be in business and what makes it impossible to stay in business. As governor, we want to create new business. In Hawaii, we have no business. We have no ag business. Who remembers dairy? How about poultry, beef, produce? These are industries that Hawaii used to dominate. We need to have these back in Hawaii. The governor has the authority to create space, to use DLNR, to use these platforms to actually say, let's create space for these businesses to come back to Hawaii. In addition, there must be a way to transport goods and services. I've recommended that we do a nonprofit ferry between the islands so a local business can move goods and services at no cost.
Yeah!
Then they have a profitable business. So what does that mean? When your kids go to school and they graduate from school, what happens? They go to the mainland. Why? Because the state of Hawaii has put all of its eggs in the tourism basket. This is driving many things that are wrong. Our sustainability, our capacity for growth, everything is tied to bad decisions, bad policy. So as governor, we will create policies that are for the people to thrive, so that your family can stay, so that your legacy can stay, and they have a place to stay and go to work. Finally, we must bring high-tech industry to Hawaii. So I'm just saying, these are possibilities that will transform our lives and the lives for future generations.
Thank you very much. So the next question for our candidates is, are you satisfied with the way Hawaii public schools are run, and what would you do to change it? Start with them.
Fireball!
Yes.
Well, ever since I went to Hilo High School, we were always on the bottom. We were always number 50 in education, so we've always needed to improve our school. It is well known that Hawaii's public school system isn't the best. I want to help. First of all, we need to give it a proper funding to support art programs, music programs, sports programs, science programs, and computer programs. I will also make sure that divisive ideas like critical race theory do not infiltrate our public school system. I will also not have any sexual propaganda to be taught at the elementary school level. Biological sex will be taught regardless of sexual orientation. We are all mostly born with certain biological organs. We will teach the biological functions of the organs. What you would like to do with them would be up to their parents to teach them. I support charter schools and support homeschooling. I support your freedom to choose how you want your child to receive their education. Everybody, I gotta let you guys know that I have a meeting at the Capitol building right now, so I have to head out of here right now. So just want to thank you guys very much. I'm sorry I had to cut this short, but I have to go. I have another.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming.
BJ, thanks. Can you repeat that question?
So are you satisfied with the way?
No. No, I am not satisfied with the way the school districts are being run. And what I would propose and what I am a fan of is an elected Secretary of Education. I saw how that worked where I grew up. And it's basically getting the input from people on the best practices of what needs to be taught in our school districts. I do not agree with anything from critical race theory, anything that divides us. I totally oppose it. Anything that does not bring us together to perform and be our best selves, I totally oppose those things. So, to answer that question, it's a pretty straightforward question with me, is what's in the best interest of our kids, and I have 4 children, and I want to see them thrive. Thank you.
Education in Hawaii, although we spend $15,000 per student annually, we have the lowest or in the bottom 5 proficiency tests year after year after year. This is a total breakdown of the Department of Education, which is flawed in its very nature. The way the department is set up is it's centralized, first of all. Can you imagine if you lived on the outer islands what your considerations would be? Secondly, it's appointed by the governor, the director, the deputy directors. You no longer have a say in your curriculum. The P in PTA must be put back in public schools. This must happen through a legislative move. This is actually codified in law, that you are by law that you are not allowed to participate in your kids' education. Therefore, vote. You must elect representatives that will stand for education. Our kids should learn the basics, period. They should be equipped to go into a global economy, ready to serve their community, to provide for their families. Currently, we don't have that. I can tell you as governor, there's pieces of the education that we just won't fund, period. These conversations, that this grooming of our children, re-socializing, breaking the fabric of our families, it must come to an end. And it starts with a governor who will actually declare, this is not right. We must stand as a people and make clear declarations about right and wrong, and then we must back it up with policy that makes sense for the people. The parents must be heard. You must be heard. So these critical race theories, this sexualization, this funding, there's almost $200 million right now in funding for these organizations, for this policy. We will defund that. We will move that money and teach the kids civics. How about that? So join.
Actually, you're going to be the first to answer this question, Gary, and then we'll go.
Okay. She didn't share.
Oh, sorry. Is that okay? Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, sorry. So with regards to education, I just want to say briefly to the meeting at the Capitol, many of my other candidates may also be going there right now as well. At the Capitol, as we speak, starting at 1:30, is a meeting held by the Board of Education regarding unmasking our keiki, or talking about the masking of our keiki. So that's the meeting happening at the Capitol, which I will be going to right after this. As this is pertaining to the Department of Education, I just thought it was very important to share that information. I did submit testimony that's already there. I'll be following up in person very soon. Thank you. Yes. And also introduced a resolution from the City Council to say that we want our keiki to be unmasked and to live in freedom. It makes no sense that they go to their school, have a mask on their face, and go to Target and are perfectly fine. So I'll be attending that meeting in a little while as well. So it's regarding the Department of Education situation. Both my parents are retired teachers, and so what I've really known, and having worked in the DOE myself as a behavioral health specialist with at-risk youth, the funding of Department of Education, the problem is the funding stops at the top with six-figure administrative positions where the administrators getting paid six figures are getting paid a lot of money that doesn't translate to the education of our students. So as governor, I will take the lead to make sure that the funding for Department of Education gets to the programs, the academic, athletic, extracurricular, trade school programs that should have always been funded. It's not due to a lack of funding, it's a situation of where the funding is going within our Department of Education. So as governor, I will work with the Board of Education to decentralize the Board of Education, because right now everything is held in Honolulu. Our outer islands and rural communities deserve the same representation, and bring the money from the top down into our classrooms and for our teachers and for our students.
Okay, Gary will start this one, and it's pretty easy. What would you do differently from Governor Ige to address homelessness?
How much time do you have?
It's an important caveat. The first piece, everything. Secondly, actually, homelessness in Hawaii is directed through the Department of Health. And the problem is they never identify who the homeless are. They think the homeless are all the same people. In reality, though, there's three groups of homelessness. They must be addressed individually by way of identifying really what's going on for them. You have a mentally ill and drug addicted and alcohol piece, right? You have people who actually are okay with living on the street and they'd rather live there. Then you have people who've had a bit of bad luck and they're there not because they want to be. Each one of these aspects, each one of these groups of people must be managed and assisted separately. Those who are sick, they must be identified and get into a place that they can get better.
Yes.
Those who are living on the street because they want to eat, their social services must be cut off.
Yes.
People who are on the street and they're just gleaning from social services need to get a job. I don't care what the job is, but they need to participate in the society for the well-being of the entire population. And finally, those who have had a rough time, they need services that just give them a leg up. They need people who will come alongside them. I meet with these people. I stand in the park. What does this young man need? He needs a shower. We need hygiene stations like in Europe. You ever seen these in Europe? Hygiene stations, a place where people can go in, get a shower, get cleaned up. The man needs a shower. He says, I need a bus pass to get to work, and I need a place to lay my head down to sleep. This is an entirely different group. Identifying these groups, assigning actually people who are in charge of these groups rather than a broad brush, let's throw money at them and pretend like they don't exist. This is not good governance.
In response to our homeless and how I would do something different from Governor Ige, I follow with my fellow candidate and say everything. It has been a really difficult time watching how things have been going on in our state and our city. As mentioned, I worked in transitional and homeless shelters in the early 2000s. My background is social services. And at that time, there was a lot of money, not a lot, but definitely a lot more than now, that went to nonprofits that worked in communities, identified the individuals who were in need of assistance, and the money was there for us to do what we needed to do to make sure that we had a triage system in place. You need mental health services, you need substance abuse services, and having the services available. Since that time, the money that used to go to nonprofits has been pulled up to the state level with Department of Health, and they use that money to administrate nonprofits into doing their work. We need to stop this process of having so much of the money going up to government to administrate and let people who know how to do the work do the work. So I've been recently involved in that at the City Council. We started a HONU program, which is a navigation site. We set up a place and we go to different encampments and do exactly what we talked about is triage. You talk to each individual, what do you need, what do you need, what do you need, how are we going to get you there? So it can be done, I've seen it be able to be done, but it does take hard work, it takes intention, and it takes putting the money into the hands of the nonprofits who are in the communities and to our service providers who can do the good work that they can do. We even had money for 30 seconds. So one of the biggest things that happened when I worked with HONU is a relocation program. So what happens, I met an individual who came here with the military and went on a bit of hard luck, and we were able to relocate him to his mother in Florida, who had been praying for him for 4 years. And I saw it on Facebook, and she said, I never stopped praying for my son. He finally came home. So there's things that can be done. We just have to do it right and with tension and put the money in the right place.
And I think we all agree, everything different. So with the everything different, my background in child protective services, juvenile probation, being in Texas and Pennsylvania, funding was tied to evidence-based programming. Meaning, if the nonprofit performed, they kept the data on what they did, there was funding allocated for them. If they didn't hit those goals, funding was taken away from them. So it's a simple fix, and we don't have funding tied to evidence-based programming. A few weeks ago, I was fortunate to be a part of an organization called Radical Holiday. And this lady, actually, she and her husband, they take their own monies into the community where they help with programming from helping the homeless to find emergency housing, to transitional housing. And they actually feed them, and they had some companies come in to support them with food and milk and drink and all those different things. And her dream is to have a location where she can help these people transition, the ones who are ready to help themselves, to get on their feet. And they've recruited corporate partners like Target to help with the job, helping place them with jobs. So working with organizations that are a part of evidence-based programming for the sake of funding, because there's a ton of programs that can help us with homelessness and houselessness and all these different social issues that we have. And that's what we want to do. That's what we're going to do as governor, is leverage the 501c3s, because they're experts. They're in the fields. They're dealing with the oceans. They're dealing with after-school programs. And that's a way that we stay within the 3 values of our campaign, which is doesn't increase the overhead of the state, doesn't cause people to think they're going to lose their jobs, and it works in the best interest of the citizens of Hawaii. Thank you.
Okay, I think we start with you, right? Is Hawaii managing its tourism industry properly? What, if anything, should we handle differently?
Thank you so much. So with regard to our tourism industry, the biggest problem with that is it has been a very good market for a very long time, but we have enjoyed the comfort of having one industry running our state and revenues for a very long time. And we definitely need to diversify. If there's any time where we've seen the need for diversification, it's now. So within the concept of tourism, I believe that it will still always remain as one of our industry drivers, but we definitely need a lot of different industry to help support what's going on. So moving to diversified agriculture, I currently represent most of the area of the rural Oahu. So really make sure that we finally invest in agriculture and have good jobs for agriculture, so we can help also with our food security. Right now, we are relying only on imports. Most of everything we get is imported. That doesn't have to be the case. We have some of the best soil in the world. We can grow our own food, so definitely need to diversify to food security is a big issue that we definitely have to look to. Again, helping our small businesses and make sure we do that. But there's so many things of how we can diversify our home and make sure we have different economic drivers. So that is going to be a really big focus. I want to speak briefly to something that happened at the Homeless City Council recently, and that was the regulation of illegal short-term rentals in our neighborhoods. It speaks to tourism, is that we had a lot of homes operating illegally as short-term vacation rentals, which led to the overrun of our residential neighborhoods. So we just know that if we rely only on tourism, that tourism will move not just from the areas that have been zoned to be for tourists, but it will come and proliferate throughout all our residential areas, and we've seen that to be the case as well. My dad's from Georgia, and there's areas in Florida that became complete tourism towns. We need to have this a place for home, for residents, and make sure that we balance all of those needs together. So yes, definitely we need to balance it a lot better. Thank you.
So the additional piece to tourism in Hawaii, I think we just need to add the educational piece. And that starts with whether they're coming in by the ship or they're coming in by the plane, so that they understand what it means to respect the island. And also utilizing those entertainers from Hawaii to help promote that message as a part of Hawaii First economic recovery. So people know what to expect once they come to Hawaii. So keeping in line with education or tourism can be managed a whole lot better, from having humanitarian efforts come in to help everything from reef restoration to best practices and what's going to help and benefit Hawaii. So I believe we can do a whole lot better job of managing tourism, starting with educational tourism. Thank you.
Tourism in Hawaii has traditionally been, over the last several decades, the main focus of our government with regard to generating funds. This is the focus, and this is where it must change. Recently, there was a group started to plan tourism for the state for the next 5 years. They asked 25 stakeholders to give their input, and then when it was all done, they give 2 days on the Zoom for the people's input. This is where tourism goes awry. The people actually don't want 12 million tourists. The people want balance. I'm hoping for a day when families would come back to Hawaii and say, I want to come on a family vacation and experience the aloha that Hawaii has shared for generations. That is not the case now, because the focus of government policy is to use tourism for a tax base. If we change the dynamic and we actually make this a sustainable state where local farmers, local business can pick up the tax revenue base, we don't have to be so aggressive about going after the tourism dollar. So my sense is balance. We need balance, but we need the people's input, in particular the outer island. Once again, they're bearing the brunt of consolidated power in Honolulu. They have no say. So I can just tell you that they're suffering. I hear from them every time we go. They're sick of this. And with regard to rental, low-income housing rental, not low-income housing, but short-term rentals for tourists, this is a very difficult scenario. How do you tell a family who can barely afford to have their mortgage not rent their house for a place to live? For a family to come on vacation, all we really need is legal rentals where people have a criteria that they can meet the criteria. There's parking available. There's taxes that are paid, and there's responsible government. When those don't do it, then those people should be prosecuted, whatever that law may be. I'm saying that there's balance. It can be both, but there's three pieces: tourism, local business, and local accommodations.
I think you're first, right? Okay, and we're winding down, but you can see how this is helpful so that we can.
Very good.
Yes. So, are you satisfied with the current plans to pay for the state's unfunded liabilities? In other words, all the retirements and things of state workers. So, if not, how do you propose to meet the pension and health benefits for our public workers?
Well, I think if we can figure out how to get $12 billion from the federal government for a rail that's not going to benefit most of us, I'm pretty sure we can figure out these unfunded liabilities for healthcare and all those different issues. So it's just taking an account of what needs to be funded, how soon it needs to be funded, and what revenue stream that we have coming in, and with economic recovery, creating more revenue to the state of Hawaii to fund these liabilities that were part of the promise when you started your job. Because everybody wants that promise to be kept. So just taking in considerations of what funding is actually that we can appropriate to make sure that those liabilities are met in order to still create and generate revenue to the state of Hawaii. That's something I'm going to have to dig in even deeper to find out, to know some of the creative ways. Originally, when I had a meeting with one of your members about funding the liabilities, that's one of those things I need to dig deeper so that we have a plan that actually works and works in the best interest of Hawaii. Thank you.
Unfunded liabilities, if you've paid into a liability, paid into unemployment or a social service or a retirement package, then you should get your resources back. How to actually change what's in the past you cannot do, but we can change policy going forward. These negotiations and agreements made between the state and unions must be renegotiated based on and using unfunded liabilities or pension plans as a part of the conversation. Our state legislature currently moves unfunded liability debt off the books, and they make it seem like the books are okay. Our state is in dire financial crisis because of the lack of integrity with regard to funding and paying for unfunded liabilities. Moving forward, no longer should overtime be factored into an employee's long-term pension benefit. That's what we do now. We give all kinds of, that should be taken away so that people's benefit is based on their career, not over the last 2 years of what they've done as an employee. So, it's very difficult because people are counting on these pension benefits moving forward. So at that point, you have to honor those things. I would say that the biggest piece in dealing with this conversation is shrink government.
Yes.
So for my administration, we will simply not rehire people who have retired. We will shrink the size of government. Therefore, the unfunded liabilities will shrink in time. We have to continue to honor our commitments to those who are receiving the pension, but for those who going forward, they must be renegotiated and be thoughtful about what the state can actually afford.
To the issue of unfunded liabilities, there should not be a category of that in our government budgeting. So as a city council member, we at the most recent budget hearings have been putting a bigger portion towards that unfunded liability, but it never should have become unfunded in the first place. So with regards to how to deal with unfunded liabilities, my goal is to take away that category from government budgets, just like Social Security. It is irresponsible spending at the government level that takes from funding sources that you should never take from and pay other things. So as governor and looking at city budgets over time, there's a lot of things that can be called just very wasteful spending on consultants, on projects that you study 3 or 4 times over, for projects like our state redevelopment of our stadium that we paid for now 5 times. For our old CCC relocation, we paid for that study 5 times. So if we stop paying for studies over and over again and use the money for where it's supposed to go, we can do away with unfunded liabilities, which for me, as a mom, makes me very concerned because after doing the city budgets over the times that I've been doing city budgets, it's concerning for the next generation because what's happening now is it's okay, it's not going to be our problem, we're going to pretend everything's fine, and the next generation is going to have to pay for it. That is a big reason of why I'm running. As a mom, it is unfair what we're doing to future generations about the financial stability of our state. We have to make huge changes on what we do to make sure we're leaving a viable economic forecast within our state government for future generations. So first and foremost, fund the unfunded liability by spending smart in our government and make sure that this can never be considered an unfunded category anymore.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the last question, and what I'd like to do. So as they mentioned, they have a lot of other places to go, the state capitol, but I would catch them on their way out. And I would catch them to ask them how you can volunteer for their campaign, or I would catch them to say where you can donate to their campaign, or that's what I would like for you to do. But then the last question is, and I think we start with you, Larry. Okay, so who is your favorite politician and why? Any living, dead, anyone?
That's too hard.
I'm going to go with Martin Luther King Jr. Even though he was a pastor, I would still consider him a political figure because of what he did to organize people for the greater cause of humanity. And he is actually one of my mentors from my childhood of who inspired a dream inside of me. I say I have 2 sides of, I wanted to be like Walter Payton and Barry Sanders when I played football and I was a running back. But as far as helping humanity, helping people, Martin Luther King Jr. hands down. And it's because he had a dream. And in that speech, it was about the content of your character. And when I arrived in Hawaii, I'll tell you a real short story. And I backed into that Hilo Walmart parking lot. And the lady beside me, I'm from the South. She rolls down her window and she says hello to me. I knew I was in the right place. And when the brothers when I went to one of the association meetings in Hawaii, in Kona, and I sat down at the table and they told me how to move around in Hawaii to meet people, I knew I was in the right place. So Martin Luther King Jr. is that person, political figure that I hold in the highest of esteem. Thank you.
All right.
Great question.
Yes.
I would have to say Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
This was a man who, in the most dire of circumstances, in a nation that was truly divided, that was at war within itself, stood. This is a man who lived a principled life. He understood what it meant to bring people back together based on integrity and moral values. This is what we need in our state today. We need somebody who will stand and bring the people back together. And I think that's the task for all of us. We long for, how many of you long for an opportunity to have a conversation with your neighbor about COVID? This divisive kind of behavior that we've seen in our society is breaking down that every family, I talk to numerous families whose kids go off to an Ivy League school one way and they come back another way, and there's complete division. So I would just say that Abraham Lincoln is my hero, that we will stand, I will stand for the people, we will bring unity, and whatever is required. It cost him his life. I want you to think about what it's going to cost to take down greed and that democratic peace. It's turbulent waters, and we need a people who will stand together. This group and thousands like you would stand together for liberty and for freedom and for unity for our people. We must stand. There is no option. I want you to consider what 4 or 8 more years of the past 4 or 8 years have been. It's unconscionable. It's unbelievable even to think about it. It is the opportunity that we have as citizens of the state to stand in unity, to work together for change. That our kids, that our families, that the legacy that we long for as a people would be reestablished in righteousness. This is why I stand. Righteousness in government. And someday, soon, in November, I will stand on the platform and I will say, look what he has done. And so I say, Abraham Lincoln, all right.
Thank you. One of my favorite politicians of all time, and one that I look to very often just to think about how it was to make decisions during a very difficult time, is our Prince Trujillo. As you know, he was our delegate to Congress, our Republican delegate to Congress, in very, very difficult times. He was looking to see how to transition a kingdom into the new world that he saw coming all around him. I am part Hawaiian. My mom's native Hawaiian, Chinese, German. My dad is Cherokee, Indian, Irish, and German. So I'm all Kapakahi. And I have a Japanese last name, so long story. But when you think about everything and how everybody's coming together and the very difficult times that we are in right now, it is very similar to those times of figuring out this is the world we knew. This is what our people knew. This is what was important to our people. Because of everything that's going on, I need to find a path to where the people can still prosper, to where the people still feel like they can be here and have a home here. That's what he did with the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act. He set up a plan to say, I know my people are going to have problems. They don't know how to acquire land. They don't know anything about this. So I'm going to set up this act so my people can have a plan to be able to have a home, to be able to make a life. That's the place where we're at today, and that's what has caused me to decide to run for government, because it is a very challenging time, but it's a time where you have to have a leader that says, no matter if it's challenging, I'm going to still engage. Prince Trujillo could have said, my kingdom is going. I'm not even going to participate in what's going on around me, but he chose to get in there and make a plan for his people. This is the time we are at. Everybody has to come to the table. We have to decide. It doesn't look like there's any hope, but there is hope when people get in there and decide no matter what, I will have a plan not just for today, but for our future. So let's all come together and do that. These are very, very important times. www.heidiforhawaii.com. It's been a pleasure to see all of you. If you have any questions, you can contact me. Thank you so much for your time, and may we all do this together. Thank you.
So I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited about the election. We have outstanding candidates, and again, what we are going to do for our membership is we're going to put together all of their collateral electronically, and we'll make sure that it gets into every hand, their website, so that it's easy for you to do your due diligence. I'm just blessed that we have such outstanding Republicans who are standing up and doing this. So don't let them get away. Do not let them get away without putting some money or check or finding out how you can volunteer for them or the other candidates in the audience. And before we go, we'll give the 50-50. So we raised $166 by these tickets. So the winner will get $83. How was hard to? Oh. So whoever has 293-103. 103. All right. All right. So again, thank you all for your time. Please malama our candidates, and if you have any questions, we'll make sure they're linked up. What's that?
Are there times for announcements?
Yes.